when you're working in a team setting, the energies have to be aligned in one direction. If the energies are aligned in opposite direction, then the result will not come. And how do you align those energies? And that is, through relationships. And that's where I think EQ, which I now talk a lot about. Back then, I didn't know, that the power of, I didn't even know about EQ. But now when I reflect back, emotional intelligence is nothing but understanding how the other person is thinking and aligning what you're thinking with their thinking, so that there is a better coordination and alignment overall. So the risk is very high in startup. So you have to be very alert.
Okay.
You have to be very, very careful in terms of what you're prioritizing. And the importance of just being super focused becomes very real for you. And I think life itself is like that, where obstacles are actually created so that we can learn something from it, right? And I think entrepreneurship is very much like, like everyone, I think everyone is going through something or the other in their career or their personal life. There are a lot of obstacles and so on. And those obstacles keep coming till we learn something from it. There's a pattern, right? So in entrepreneurship is also the same thing. So if we are not improving our sales strategy, we'll keep facing this obstacle that we are not able to convert enough customers, right? And when you say serve others, sometimes people think, it's like some sort of a social service or something. It's not just that, right? It's like any business is serving others, and you do it in a very with that emotion that I want to help, I want to serve, right? And of course, the monetization and all happens because you have to sustain it, right? But the core emotion, right, has to be let's serve, right? Let's serve the user, let's serve the business that you're trying to do, and do it well.
Welcome to Let's Talk Clarity podcast with राकेश मथुरिया। और आज हम बात करने वाले हैं ऋषि से। ऋषि जिन्होंने अपनी हाई पेइंग जॉब इन गूगल छोड़ के अपना बिजनेस स्टार्ट किया। ही वॉज विद गूगल फॉर 13-14 ईयर्स और उन्होंने गूगल पे, यूट्यूब और गूगल वर्कस्पेस जैसी ऐप्स पे काम किया, लेकिन उनका जो मन था हमेशा से बिजनेस स्टार्ट करने का था। तो उन्होंने एक हाई पेइंग जॉब इन गूगल छोड़ के अपनी एक कंपनी स्टार्ट की, एंड देन ही फेस्ड लॉट ऑफ चैलेंजेस। उन सब चैलेंजेस को क्रॉस करते हुए नाउ ही हैज़ बिकम एन एंटरप्रेन्योर। सो ये जर्नी बहुत ही इंटरेस्टिंग होने वाली है, कैसे उन्होंने गूगल छोड़ा, द रेजिग्नेशन डे, और कैसे अपने जो चैलेंजेस थे उनको ओवरकम किया। So let's start the episode. Welcome to Let's Talk Clarity podcast. और आज हमारे साथ में स्पेशल गेस्ट हैं। He is a close friend and पिछले 1.5 साल पहले he has converted his career from a long corporate career to entrepreneurship. He is founder and CEO of Thriving Springs, and what Thriving Springs is doing, we will listen from Rishii itself. But first, let's welcome Rishii.
Thanks Rakesh. Really great to be here, and thanks for having me on this podcast. And I've seen your previous podcasts and they've been really, really good. So I'm pretty excited to be here. So thank you for having me.
Great. Thank you for accepting the invite and coming to the show actually, because I know last 1.5 year entrepreneur journey, it takes a very toll, and just before this recording we were discussing also. So but let's start. एक बहुत बड़ा क्वेश्चन मेरे दिमाग में आता है और वो हमेशा आता ही रहेगा, गूगल छोड़ के कौन एंटरप्रेन्योर बनता है? So Google is the best company to work for, and you were there from last 13-14 years in the Google. So वो कैसे हुआ? I was just curious to know about it.
Sure. So I think firstly I was quite fortunate that I was able to get into Google. This was back in 2009. So Before that, I was pursuing my MBA at ISB Hyderabad. And prior to that, I was working in various engineering companies. I was at Fidelity Investments, where I was, working as a, senior engineer there. And before that, I was with Oracle. So after about 4 5 years of technology experience, I decided to get an MBA and came to ISB, did that. Back then, I was thinking about starting something, in entrepreneurship right after ISB. That was my original thought. In fact, my MBA there was also in entrepreneurship and strategy. Those are the two areas that I specialized in. And ISB as a business school also specializes and focuses a lot on entrepreneurship. So that was a good foundation for me. However, 2009 was the time when there was massive recession going on, and I had student loan and all of those things. So I felt like, okay, maybe this may not be the right time to jump in. And fortunately, Google came on campus. I interviewed and I got through. So that was a good sign. And so when I joined Google, my first few stints were around, driving product management for Google Apps for Work, which was G Suite. So taking Gmail, Docs and Drive to businesses. Gmail, as you know, became very successful back then as a consumer application, and Google was trying to figure out how do you make, how do you really leverage these consumer applications to make a big, to drive adoption in the enterprise and business space. And they were competing with Microsoft Office 365 and other similar things. So Google was competing with Microsoft in that space. So that was my first project where I was one of the product managers on the Google Workspace side, and that was very interesting. Had a really good time building a product from scratch and doing that. So I had a really good time doing that. And post that, I moved to Google Pay for almost 4 years, and got a similar experience of building the product. I was taking care of the platform side of GPay. However, while I was there, it was a great experience and so on. I got into, teaching emotional intelligence. So there is this course that, Google, had in-house. It was called Search Inside Yourself.
Search
inside yourself.
Okay.
So it was designed by one of the early engineers at Google. His name was Meng, in collaboration with Daniel Goleman and other folks, who are pioneers in the whole emotional intelligence space. So I attended one of that session, and I got really, really interested in that space, because I was always into mindfulness, but I didn't know how these concepts apply to day-to-day work. And that's where emotional intelligence framework came into play, where they were able to connect inner skills like mindfulness, EQ, and then show how that is good for business, how that makes you a better leader, how that makes you a better manager.
Okay.
So that bridge was very interesting to me, and so I volunteered to be a teacher. So at Google, there is this 20% concept where you can take 20% of your time and do something that you're passionate about. So I applied to be a facilitator of that program, and there is an application process and so on. So I got selected there, moved to Mountain View for a short training in that space. And then came back, and I was one of the facilitators, and I was taking these workshops across Asia Pacific region for Google. So I was one of the 2 or 3 facilitators in APAC. Okay. So I was taking workshops, going to Singapore, going to Australia, going to Japan, like these offices, Google offices. Google offices, and taking a 2-day workshop on EQ. So this was going on along with my regular job. My day job was a product management person. So I was building products with engineers, and my side project was this. So I did this for 5-6 years. So this was very interesting to me, that how EQ can help us become a better manager. And I was a manager myself, so I was looking for ways to become more effective and so on. And this slowly became more of my purpose in calling, because each time I would do a workshop, I would, gain a lot. I would feel very satisfied and so on. And it was more of a citizenship activity. So Google was, just encouraging it as a citizenship activity, but I was really enjoying that. So that's when it occurred to me that, after having spent 13 long years, 12, 13 years at Google, I felt like, okay, what's next for me? Like, should I, try something new? And then this thing was on my mind that, why don't I try to, I've seen the impact these workshops are having. I see the impact of behavioral skills in general, has on a person's career. My own career, I was able to see was, moving faster after I started getting into this space. So it felt like the insight I was getting is that, if you're able to build a very strong technology platform that combines emotional intelligence, related topics on a technology platform which can scale, then it can have a huge impact on everyone's career mobility and so on. So, and this was an area of my deep interest. So and then my earlier desire of entrepreneurship also was lingering in my mind. So all of those things came together. And after spending a long time in corporate world, you also achieve a certain financial comfort and so on, so you're able to, your risk appetite also goes up. So that was also, because you have to be practical also, right? I think you can't completely take a very romantic notion of it and just start jumping out. So I think I had reached a stage in life where I felt like, okay, now I can take some financial risks as well. And fortunately, what happened was I was talking to a few investor friends, and I got early offers of that they would like to invest in this kind of a venture. So that gave me further confidence. So decided to leave Google. It was a very difficult decision because I absolutely loved my time at Google. It's a great company. I think I owe a lot to Google, and whatever I've learned is because of it was like my school. Growing up there, learning so many things, right from how do you build products, how do you work with engineers to design products at that scale, because every single Google product that I worked on was being used by millions of people, right? So whether it's Gmail or G Suite or GPay, right? So the kind of scale that you see there, right, is unparalleled. And I think the most beautiful thing about working at Google was just the people there. It's just deeply empathetic, folks, very smart, very accomplished, very humble at the same time. And what I really admire about Google's culture, and credit to the founders, Larry, Sergey, who set an early foundation for this, is that they have built a fantastic culture at scale. Where you can build a great culture when your company is small, but as the company becomes big, there's always a risk. But they were able to keep it largely intact and maybe even make it better, at scale. And I think kudos even to the CEO and the Sundar, of course, and others who are now running the whole thing. But I've seen the whole Google journey right from 2009, and I've seen that consistency, that culture is very important. And one of the main mission and vision, one of the values of Google is do no evil, right? Which I've seen play out in action. Like they're very, very serious about that. And
what is that value?
Do no evil. So whenever you're practicing anything, the way you operate as a business, right, always keep the end user in mind, right? Even at the cost of Google's own financial always keep the end user's interest in mind, right? And it also goes into the way product innovation is done at Google, where when you're building a new product, like GPay is a great example. When GPay was being designed and built, the focus was not in terms of how much money Google will make from it. The focus was let's build something useful for people. Once people start finding value and stuff, then business will follow. We'll figure out ways to do that. And that's been a philosophy across everything that Google has done. Even in G Suite, Google Workspace, initially Google Workspace was completely free. It was, there was a standard edition. It was completely free. Businesses use it. And the idea was to just give it to startups, give it to this thing. Let's build something useful. And later, obviously as a business to sustain, you have to come up with some monetization model. And later they started coming up with something. But initially, for a very long time, even today for education, universities, Google Workspace is still free. So I think those kind of principles is something that I really admire, and that's why it was very hard for me to leave Google. And I do miss working at Google even now. And but I feel like I had a good time there, and I was fortunate that I had good 13 years working there, and now this is a different journey.
No, I'm sure Google has given you many great learnings and many great experiences, and those experiences and learning will be useful in entrepreneur journey also. So if I ask you, means not Google, even before that also Oracle, TCS, Fidelity, if put together whole of your 17 18 years of career, and if you can share top 3 learnings from corporate world that can be useful for you in entrepreneur journey also, means if you can share. Yeah.
Sure. So I think the number one thing that comes to my mind is relationships, I would say. So across all my stints, I had great relationships with my managers, with my team, my stakeholders. Of course, there were some times when there was some friction and all, and then took the right steps to address it and so on. But I would say relationships, because what is a corporate, right? Corporate is a bunch of people working together, right, towards certain goals. When you're working in a team setting, the energies have to be aligned in one direction. If the energies are aligned in opposite direction, then the result will not come. And how do you align those energies? And that is through relationships. And that's where I think EQ, which I now talk a lot about, back then I didn't know that the power of, I didn't even know about EQ. But now when I reflect back, emotional intelligence is nothing but understanding how the other person is thinking and aligning what you're thinking with their thinking, so that there is a better coordination and alignment overall, right? Like you're able to build that better understanding, and the net result is a more effective relationship, right? A working relationship, so that you're not talking at each other, but you're talking to each other and you're sort of aligned, right? So that's why I feel like relationships is number one thing. The second I would say is just competence, right? Like technical competence. I feel I've seen so many people in corporate world who have done extremely well on the sheer power of their technical brilliance, technical competence. So I've been in a technical area in terms of engineering and software engineering and product building. So so in this context, what I've seen is that there's huge huge benefit of cultivating technical competence within teams. Like hire people who are really good at what they do, right? And prioritize it, reward that. And Google does that really well, right? Like I think it's highly meritocratic. So you will see engineers who have grown very fast.
Sundar Pichai.
Yeah. So completely built on merit. But technical competence is very critical. I feel like I think it's the ability to, in case of product management, since I was in product management as an area, the ability to pick product ideas, the right product ideas, develop clarity around it, what needs to be built, then prioritizing the right features, because in any product, you pick up any user, they will come up with 100 ideas, right? But you will always have few engineers who are working on it, so you have to prioritize it. So the ability to prioritize, that comes under technical competency, right? So I would say those kind of things are very critical, from a corporate world. So I would say these are the two things that really come to my mind, which is very important from a corporate world. And in the startup environment, both these things are highly relevant. I would say the third thing is hiring, right? Like the kind of people you hire which is very critical for a startup. Because in startup, you're literally like you're fighting for survival every day,
Yes.
right? And your startup is nothing but a summation of the people you've hired. So you have to be very careful. And one of the quotes I really like is, hire slow, right? Like hire slow. Don't rush into just hiring people, because it's not even fair. Like if you get a wrong person, of course they're not great for your company, but at the same time, it's not fair to that person also, because
Okay.
when you're hiring someone, it is also your responsibility to make sure that you are inviting them into a space where they're set up for success,
Set up
right?
for success.
And sometimes when you hire too fast, and this again I've learned at Google, because Google used to have hiring committees where the person who is the hiring manager would not decide who will get hired.
Okay. Okay.
They don't have the sole power
Say-
to do that.
Okay.
They would interview and there'll be a panel, and the scoring and the rating and all of it will go to a third party hiring committee, which is like inside the company itself, but they will be a different team, and they will take an objective assessment and say whether this person should be given an offer or not. At Google, and I used to head one of the committees for product management for certain levels. And there we used to look at packets routinely and see, okay, here's a candidate, here are the scores. And then depending on that, there would be a consensus decision, right? And if there was no consensus, then we would not hire.
Okay.
Right? So the default is don't hire. Right? Only if when everyone is convinced, because once someone comes into the system, right, they will be there for many, many years, right? So you have to be very careful in terms of you're getting the right fit for the organization and so on. So yeah, I think these are the three things that I have seen.
Yeah, super powerful. Means I totally relate to the hiring process and the hiring slow, because recently I was watching a podcast, one of my friends' podcast, and what he was referring is he's also an entrepreneur. So he was also referring that once he hired someone at a very lower cost. Okay, someone, and ultimately means over the years, 2 years, ultimately he paid for that. Means the low hiring at lower will not be serving to the company. Means even if you are hiring at a higher rate, you have to go for the quality hiring. Yeah.
Correct. I think, see, salary and all is just one aspect. What is more important is opportunity cost, right? Like when you're putting a person in that position, and if that person is not able to do justice, the company loses the opportunity, because that time is gone.
Time is gone.
Right?
Yes.
And in startup, time is everything, right? Like startups will die if you don't use that time well, because you raise money, you only have a limited runway. In that runway, you have to go and show that you built a product, or do some really strong marketing to take the product to market. So yeah, I think the only caveat I would say is Google could afford to hire really slow because it's a large organization. That I'm in a startup at Thriving Springs. We don't have that much time, right? So we don't have that much time. We don't have those many applications also, right? Like at Google, everyone wants to join Google, so you'll have like this crazy number of applications. But in a startup thing, you don't get that kind of a thing. So it is tricky. It's not easy. You also have to close the position. At the same time, you only have a limited pool. So that's where I think intuition, a little bit of hunch, doing multiple rounds of discussions with your leadership team, so that you get. That's what I do now. Like I have a strong leadership team now at Thriving Spring. So if there is a candidate that we're interviewing, I would get our leadership team also to speak to the candidate, so that if I have missed something, they are able to bring it up, and then we are able to take a consensus decision. I think that really helps. I think a single point decision making should not happen, because there are always blind spots that you may not be aware of. So it's better to have at least 3-4 people speak to the same candidate and then take a call.
That's super powerful. So let's take this journey of means from corporate to entrepreneurship. Let's take it to the next level, and let's discuss about from last 18 years you were working in a corporate, and now you are working on your own startup from 18 months. So what has changed? in this transition? And means if I can ask you, what is different from corporate to entrepreneurship?
I would say a lot. See, when you're working in a large company, there are a lot of guardrails around you.
Okay, guardrails. Yes.
Very, it's very comfortable in the sense that, you have those policies in place, you have people that you can rely on, and so it's a low risk environment, right? But when you're in a startup, uh, the buck stops at you, and everything, you have to take a call, and there are real consequences, right,
Real
to taking wrong decisions, and those consequences are quite harsh in a startup environment, because you have limited funding, right? Let's say, you hire someone that you're not supposed to, or that person doesn't work out, or for whatever reason, even if it may not be that person's mistake also, right? It could be like somehow you are not able to take the best out of that person. That's also possible. But net result is that the company loses that time, the company loses that amount, and so on. So the risk is very high in startup. um, and so you have to be very alert.
Okay.
You have to be very, very careful in terms of what you're prioritizing, and the importance of just being super focused becomes very real for you, right? See, in a large company, you're like, yeah, let's be focused and so on. So at Google, what we used to do is we used to do quarterly planning. Okay, the next 3 months, this is what we're going to build. If something doesn't get done in that quarter, it moves on to the next quarter. Obviously, everyone tries to do it, but it doesn't happen. In this case, in startup case, it has to get done, right? Because that's tied to your, let's say, the next customer coming in, or the next round of funding, or whatever, right? So the stakes are really, really high in the startup. So as a result, you overthink a lot, everything, right? So there's a lot of preoccupied mindset that you carry, because you're like constantly thinking, hey, what's going to happen, and so on. So that is one thing. The other thing is that your skill sets really have to expand. So again, my previous stints, I was started off as an engineer, then I moved to product management. So very simple, clear, areas of responsibility.
Expansion also, it is gradual.
Of course, I was a people manager, so I was developing people management skills and so on. But you have enough time to like hone those skills and so on. Overnight, when you become an entrepreneur, you realize that, and that too as a solo founder, that you realize that you have to do sales, right? Even though you'll hire people for sales, but you need to know how to do it, and you need to be driving. Especially, we are in a B2B SaaS business, so you're selling to large organizations. So the founder and the CEO has to be there in those sales meetings and be driving those conversations. So you have to understand how sales has to be done, and you don't get enough time to do that. Like, you have to just learn it very quickly. Financial stuff, right? Like, how do you while you in our case, we have an agency which manages all our books and all of that. We have got like an accounting firm to do this, but you have to be on top of it, because you will be submitting all of these documents to investors, to regulatory authorities, all of that. So you have to know what exactly is going on from a financial perspective. So I think knowledge of accounting, knowledge of finances also suddenly has to go up. Then legal,
yes,
right? So while I did a lot of legal work at Google, because as a product guy, we used to do a lot of legal due diligence when you're building products. But this legal was a more holistic legal, because you're talking about company, you're talking about the product as well. So various facets of legal aspects come in, which you have to keep in mind. Copyright, there's so many things that you have to be aware of. Then you also have the admin and hiring piece. So initially I didn't have any HR or anything, so I was doing hiring myself. And it's very brutal, because you have to, the whole process is very taxing, right? From putting the JD to like shortlisting, interviewing, and then you're doing it at scale. You don't have enough time to do all of that, and then you have to figure out compensation, then making sure the candidate joins you, because now you don't have that kind of a brand, right, where people are like knocking at your door saying that, yeah, I want to join this company. So those kind of things, like how do you make your employer brand attractive, right? Because you're not able to pay at the scale which other large companies are able to do. So those things you had to learn. Like I had to learn every small thing, and I'm still learning. This is still early days for me. uh, and this is not theoretical learning. It's like learning by getting punched, right? Like learning by like, hey, this is not working out. Oh my god, that candidate didn't join. Oh my god, okay, then and then you're just you're literally like forced to learn all these lessons. So these are hard lessons, which the good thing about these lessons is you'll never forget because you've learned it the hard way.
Hardware, yes,
Uh,
yes.
but once you learn it, once you go through it, it becomes part of you, right? So now, like the way I
It
handle
becomes
now,
in the DNA. Yeah, yeah.
becomes DNA. You become wiser. You know how to speak, in a particular context. How to, like if it's a sales conversation, how do you talk to that customer, such that they really value what you're saying, right? And they listen, and you're able to influence them. So you learn that, uh, right? Because the stakes are so high, and you're so alert, and you're so focused on making it happen. Uh, the learning is accelerated. It's highly accelerated learning. The cost, of course, there is a cost to it, which is a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress that comes. But then you have to also have another lens saying that you're running a marathon. This is not a sprint.
Friend, yes, yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Means I totally related to everything that legal, sales, finance, and then hiring. Yes, everything is means we have to learn on the job.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So from here means I was becoming very curious to know more about it because you are sharing your journey so authentically. Because I have interviewed a lot many entrepreneurs. They don't means generally they speak from the heart, but they don't speak out that anxiety issues, then all these issues, because everyone is means romanticizing entrepreneurship and follow your passion and all those things. So but from you means I was means authentically you are sharing an anxiety. So let us share that how you are handling your anxiety and your pressure, your stress, and you are into emotional intelligence guy. So means is there those things are helping in entrepreneur journey, or what else are you doing special so that your levels are down, anxieties are down, and you are able to take that decision?
Yeah. So I think I'll have to confess that the initial few months, and before I started this company, when I was at Google, I had a good work-life balance. I was, my stress levels were quite manageable, and I was, and I'm a regular meditator, so I meditate every day, and
Okay.
I also do yoga 4 times a week, and so on. So I was, able to, handle these things quite well when I was at Google. When I started the company, for the first, I would say, 3-4 months, it was quite hard because everything was new, and I think the good thing was we were funded, so we had money in the bank. That was,
Okay.
I think that is, I think compared to other startups, I would say we were in a better stage where we at least had money in the bank. However, just the whole process of setting up a team, and being a solo founder, just setting up a team and all of that was tough. And the way I dealt with it was, just going slightly more deeper in my own practices, doing a lot of journaling, spending time. So I have a pet, spending time with my dog, right, and going down for walks. And one thing that I do every day is I swim.
Okay.
And so I swim every day in the night, around 8:30 in the night, 8:39 in the night, so a little late. And that is deeply relaxing for me. I think from a just thought process perspective, right? Whenever I feel very stressed out, I always try to think about what's the worst that can happen, right? right? So when you put that, and when you become comfortable with that worst case scenario, then you're like, okay, this is not that bad. Right.
Yes.
And I also keep reminding myself that, look, I've had a good corporate career, and I can always go back, right, if things don't work out. Right. And people around me keep telling me this. So I think fortunately, everyone around me, my friends, my family, my, other folks around me have been very supportive, right? And saying that, look, you have nothing to fear, right? Like, you've done well, and, so if it doesn't work out, at least you won't regret that you didn't try it out. So something that you really wanted to do since many years, and you were passionate about this space. Now you're getting an opportunity, right? So I think that's another thing that others made me realize more than my own self, that sometimes the opportunity to build a company is also a blessing.
Yes.
Because not very many people get an opportunity where someone else is giving you the funds. People are saying, go build this company, so it's important to express gratitude, right? Okay, I'm getting this opportunity, others are not, right? Like, there are a lot of people who would love to do this, but they are probably stuck in jobs that they really don't like doing, only because they are in a position where they're not in a position where they can come out, right? They have bills to pay and all of that. And most people are in that situation where everyone has bills to pay, right? Whereas I was able to get this opportunity to come out and at least experiment and explore this. So I try to channelize that. Regardless of whatever I have said, the anxiety still comes, and you still have to go through it and stuff. So it's a hard this thing. And I feel one thing that also helps me is just building a strong leadership team in the company, right? Like, so right now I'm quite fortunate that I've built like this 5-member leadership team inside the company, where these are like very strong, smart people who really have my back, right? Like, they're like, they operate like my co-founders, and they all have equity in the company. They're all like my partners now in the organization, and I rely a lot on them for this, and they're great. And I think what gives me confidence is that many of them have taken pay cuts and joined the company. They align with the mission. And when I look at that, it gives me a lot more confidence that, look, here are people who I didn't know them before. Like, I just met them while I was setting up this company, and now they've come in and they are ready to, like, walk shoulder to shoulder with me and encourage me also when I'm down. So you meet people. Like, life is a very interesting place, I feel like. You meet people that you don't expect usually, and then they become your source of strength, right? Which is pretty phenomenal.
Yes.
So these are some of the interesting elements that you discover, that you meet people who give you strength. You meet people who are encouraging you, right? You hired them, but now they are sort of inspiring you, saying that, hey, let's go ahead, we have this thing to conquer. So I think this has also been one of the observations and one of the wonderful things that happen along the journey, that you meet people.
So I totally related to the thing which you just said, that building a company and doing entrepreneurship is an opportunity. Instead of taking it as a responsibilities and then weighing own self down, it is actually an opportunity. And many a times I share on my podcast also, means a lot of people see their career as problems, job as a problem, but actually the career or a job is actually a blessing.
Yeah,
it is an opportunity to serve and get paid also.
Yeah.
So the mindset shift means instead of responsibility, take it as opportunity. I really liked it very much. Means it is the number one takeaway. If someone says of this podcast, it will be this one.
Well, thanks. And I think life itself is like that, where obstacles are actually created so that we can learn something from it, right? And I think entrepreneurship is very much like you know
Like,
like everyone, I think everyone is going through something or the other in their career or their personal life. There are a lot of obstacles and so on, and those obstacles keep coming till we learn something from it. There's a pattern, right? So in entrepreneurship is also the same thing. So if we are not improving our sales strategy, we'll keep facing this obstacle that we are not able to convert enough customers, right?
yeah.
So it's just that it in a when you're working in a corporate job, sometimes you have longer time frames, right? Not always. I think different people have different situations, so not fair to generalize. But sometimes I feel like you have longer time frames. In a VC funded entrepreneur startup, the time frames are really short. So you have to like quickly adapt, quickly take a call, and then make sure that you don't repeat the same mistakes.
Wow, wow. So, Rishi, means I'm totally enjoying this conversation, and so let's take it forward, and let's discuss about what is Thriving Spring and what it is doing, and means what are the products and how you are doing it. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So Thriving Springs, is a learning and engagement platform.
Okay.
Rooted in behavioral skills, emotional intelligence skills, and leadership skills. The idea behind this was that, one of the insights that I was sharing earlier from my stint as a coach for emotional intelligence was that there are a lot of inner skills that help us become more effective at workplace, right? For example, empathy is a great skill, which Satya Nadella has written a beautiful book around this. And, Satya, I think, is a great example of how he uses empathy to demonstrate strong leadership, right? So that's a great example of inner skill leading to a better business skill of leadership, right? And that has led to tremendous benefits for Microsoft as an organization, right? So similarly, there are a lot of other inner skills like emotional intelligence, mindfulness, communication, right? Somehow behavioral skills and leadership skills, and these inner skills have not got the level of importance it deserves in the corporate setting.
Yes.
Mostly companies care or spend more on technical skills. Those are also important. I mean, those are critical. But as a person grows in the company, like let's say I become a manager. Now, once I become a manager, for me, my ability to connect with my direct report is very critical. But how do I connect unless I have that empathy muscle, right?
Okay.
So the platform that we have built is completely focused on building these intrinsic skills. And we have created, the way we do it is we have an in-house team of psychologists and content developers, and we have created bite-sized immersive content around behavioral communication, EQ skills, which people can consume. And these are immersive, so it's not just theoretical content, but it's a mixture of short animation videos with mindfulness practices that people can actually do to build these skills. And do a lot of reflection. So we have used generative AI to do reflections where people can reflect on what would make them a better manager, how can they be more active listener in conversations, those kind of things. So we have these practice oriented elements that we have added, and simulations into the product. So that way, I would say it's more practical and more effective way to develop these skills. And then we connect these skills to individuals' learning path, right? And that's why the name is Thriving Springs. So Thrive, the idea was that we want everyone to thrive in their careers using these skills. Because the way I see this is like a superpower. Once you build these skills, then you're like a superman or a superwoman, right? Like you're just like flying because you have these skills with you that can take you forward. So that's how we have designed it, and we have now launched it. We launched it in April this year. And we now have about 5 large customers using the product, paying customers. So they're already seeing the value, they're seeing the benefits of this product. And we connect this to individual development plan, performance management, and so on, so that the workplace employee is able to use this to get ahead in their career. And also for an organization, this is great because it helps them engage their employees better, because employees are also looking for ways where they can grow their skill sets and so on. And another additional element to the product is we have created a whole well-being set of practices around emotional well-being, mindfulness. In fact, we have created our own music library using scientific theta waves and so on. We have
Wow.
collaborated with a music scientist in LA and created our own library of musical tracks that can help you build resilience, can help you build empathy, can help in deep relaxation.
Okay.
So that way it's a holistic platform that helps employees thrive at
Okay.
workplace.
Wow, super powerful.
Yeah, so that's the product all about.
Super powerful. And means I totally related to that when you said that every career, every employee should thrive in their own career. And so we are making contents, we are making music and a lot of things. But here I'm having a more important question. So from where Rishi is getting his content? Means what are you watching, what YouTube you watch, what podcast you listen, or what you are reading right now? Means if you can throw some light so that we'll get to know the entrepreneur mindset, what you reading and getting the content, new content.
So I think at a personal level, I've always been into reading a lot of books around personality development, and spirituality has been a big draw for me. So I have read all kinds of different books. I've attended all kinds of meditation retreats, right from Vipassana, the 10-day retreat, to
Okay.
going to Isha Foundation and Art of Living and everything. Like I've tried everything.
Everything. Okay.
And now I have developed my own set of rituals and practices around mindfulness.
Wow.
So I practice that, and I read a lot of books around how do you basically reach self-actualization, and those kind of topics are very interesting, because one of the questions that keeps coming to my mind over many years is, what is the purpose of a person's existence, right? Because there is sometimes there is a banality of existence, right, where you see people around and you see your own life. You take birth, you go through the similar motion, you go to school, you get studies, then you build family, you do that, all of that, and then you build a career, and then one day you see people leaving this planet, right? So this at some point, at some level, you feel, yeah, this is normal, everyone goes through this. At another level, it feels sometimes absurd that, okay, why is this happening? Right? Like where are people going? Why are they coming back? What's going on? Right? So I think those existential questions have always been in my mind. So I read a lot of books to just and that's an ongoing journey.
Yes.
So I've been very inspired by books written by Judy Krishnamurti, right? Like who's written a lot of interesting work around this space. I've read Osho as well. I've read various books. There was this plastic surgeon called Maxwell Maltz, who wrote about how self-image can influence a person's performance, right? This was one of the early books that I had read. Very interesting. These days I also read a lot of books around startups, and how do you like, for example, Lean Startup is one of the books that I've read recently.
Okay.
How do you take a small company and make it big, and so on. So that's another very interesting.
Good to great.
Yeah. So a lot of startup related books also is something of interest to me. There was this recent book that I read by Christine Neff about self-compassion. She's one of the professors in the US who has done some seminal work around self-compassion, again one of the branches of emotional intelligence. And I found that to be very interesting and useful, because I feel like most people when they're growing up, they develop certain complexes because of the environment that they grow up in, right? In some cases, let's say they have strict parents, right? So their self-image or their self-esteem takes a beating
Yes.
because they're constantly being told, right? And that creates a bit of a very weird set of psychological phenomenon in the people's heads, and sometimes people become very ambitious because of that, because they have to keep proving to themselves that they're good. So if the ambition is going in the positive way, great, but sometimes it can become negative, toxic ambition as well. So I think everyone needs that self-healing. The way to do that is self-compassion, right? So self-compassion is that fuel that helps you heal yourself. And once you do that, then you don't need to like do things or to prove it to the world that okay, you're good enough. I felt like that was a very powerful book that she has written, and it's very relevant to a large number of people.
Got it. So, Rishi, thank you for sharing those books. I was just searching on Google that Maxwell Melt's books. It is Cybernetics.
Yes.
I was just searching on Google. So, thank you for sharing all those content from where you are getting. And from here means I'm getting more curious about that. We are coming to the end of our podcast. And this question I asked to mostly all of my guests, that in 5 years, 10 years, you are writing your own autobiography. So what name would you, what title would you give to that book, and why?
Okay, this is very interesting. I would say it would be something like finding purpose through serving others, something like that.
Okay.
Right, because the reason I feel that is an apt title is because, when I was starting on this journey, I felt like, oh, I'm answering my purpose, right? I'm like trying to build this because I want to do it. And when I got onto the journey and after spending some time, I realized that finding your purpose is just one part of it. What you do with that and and how you use that to serve others is the actual thing that you have to do, right? So you have to, if you're only finding your purpose and only doing it because this is giving me some satisfaction, then you will not see the kind of impact that you have set it out for, right? So you have to connect to your purpose to generate that energy, generate that drive, generate that motivation. But you have to keep in mind that ultimately the real test of whether you have been successful or not is how you have connected that to other people's needs, right? And this could be people's needs or business needs, right? And that's where business and entrepreneurship becomes a effective vehicle, right? It's a vehicle, it's a tool to be able to connect it at scale, right? So I think these two things have to come together, and the impact that we end up creating is a function of how closely you connect the two, right? Or how efficiently you bring these two together.
That was super powerful, because finding purpose and then doing something about it to serve others, that is the whole idea. Means that was super powerful.
Yeah. And when you say serve others, sometimes people think it's like some sort of a social service or something. It's not just that, right? It's like any business is serving others, and you do it in a very with that emotion that I want to help, I want to serve, right? And of course the monetization and all happens because you have to sustain it, right? But the core emotion, right, has to be, let's serve, right? Let's serve the user, let's serve the business that you're trying to do, and do it well. So
wow. So Rishi, that was the end of our podcast. So thank you very much for coming on the show and sharing your life, your entrepreneur journey so authentically, so genuinely. So, and thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thanks, Rakesh. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I wish you all the best for your other podcasts, and really enjoyed this. And thank you once again.
Thank you for watching Let's Talk Clarity podcast. और अगर इस पॉडकास्ट को आप और आगे बढ़ाना चाहते हैं तो लाइक कीजिए, शेयर कीजिए और कमेंट सेक्शन में ज़रूर डालिए क्या आपको इस एपिसोड में अच्छा लगा, क्या आप इम्प्रूवमेंट चाहते हैं, या फिर वो भी डालिए अगर आपको कोई गेस्ट जिसको आप लेट्स टॉक क्लैरिटी पॉडकास्ट में लाना चाहते हैं तो उनका नाम और लिंक दे दीजिए. I will try to make them come on my podcast. So, thank you for watching this episode.